Chapter 10. We left Dr. Entwerfen in the last chapter uttering a very moral, if not a very new, exclamation on the vanity of human expectations, which had scarcely escaped from his lips ere cruel fate, resolving not to be accused in vain, supplied him with yet more abundant cause for lamentation. We have before mentioned that the doctor had stumbled as he quitted the pyramids, and that his friends raised him from the ground. But what was his consternation and dismay when, on looking round to thank them, he found he was surrounded by armed men who commanded him in their royal name to surrender. Sadly did the doctor turn his woeful eyes upon Edric, but alas, he was in the same predicament as himself, and in spite of their entreaties, they were marched off to prison without being at all informed of what crime they had committed. Sadly passed the night, and gloomy dawned the day upon the unfortunate travelers, whose minds were harassed and bewildered by the extraordinary success of their awful experiment, and whose misery was infinitely increased by the suspense they had to suffer, both on account of their ignorance of the crime of which they were accused, and its probable punishment if they should be found guilty. Soon after daybreak, however, a summons for them arrived, and they were conducted as criminals before the same magistrate who, the day before, had treated them with such officious kindness. Very different, however, was the solemn judge who, clothed in all the insignia of magisterial dignity, now sate upon the bench. From the easy, good-tempered gentlemen of the pyramids, the unlucky travelers saw, in an instant, that they were not likely to experience any favor from their previous acquaintance with him. The court thronged with people, and the prisoners saw that they were regarded with curiosity, mingled with horror and supernatural fear. It is not agreeable to feel oneself an object of disgust to anyone, and though Edric magnanimously and frequently repeated himself that it was quite indifferent to him what such ignorant wretches of Egyptians thought of him, yet if he would have avowed the truth, he would have been quite as well contented to find himself the object of their admiration instead of their hatred, and he would have been very glad to have been safely at home again, whilst the doctor openly and loudly lamented such regretted comforts of his own dear delightful study at Sir Ambrose's. Little time, however, was allowed for reflection, for as soon as the prisoners were placed at the bar, their examination commenced. "So, gentlemen," said the learned judge, "you stand convicted, no, I mean accused, of a most horrible, heinous, and sacrilegious offense, an offense that makes our hair start with horror from our heads, and every separate lock rise up in vengeance against you." The justice paused, that the prisoners might admire his eloquence, but alas, such was the absorbing nature of self-love, and they were only thinking of what was going to be done with them, and to what this terrible exordium was likely to lead. After a short pause, Edric, supposing that they were expected to speak, addressed the judge, and begged to know of what crime they were accused. "We are strangers," he said, "and gentlemen. We were attracted to your country by an account of the wonders it contained. We declared our purposes openly. We have affected no concealment, and we have done nothing we need blush to avow." A confused murmur ran through the court as he spoke, expressive of the utmost disgust and abhorrence. Edric felt indignant, and he looked round proudly as he added, "Yes, I repeat, we have done nothing we need blush to avow, and nothing derogatory to our characters as Englishmen and gentlemen." "Sorcerers! Wizards! Demons in disguise!" cried the crowd. "Down with them! Burn them! Guillotine them! Destroy them!" "Is this fair? Is this generous?" asked Edric. "If we have done wrong, let our crime be proved, and we are ready to submit to any punishment you may think proper to inflict. But do not condemn us unheard. In England, every man is deemed innocent until he is proved guilty. You boast of having imported and improved upon all the useful regulations of the mother country, and cannot surely have omitted her most glorious law. Let us then have a fair trial, and God forbid that the court of justice should be impeded. Talk well, sir, said the judge, but it's of no use here. My chair, sir, is made of witch elm, and the whole court is lined with consecrated wood. You may take your familiars to another market, for here they will avail you nothing. Good God! Exclaimed Edric, shaking his hands. What ignorance! What gross superstition! And yet in this man's power is our lives? Oh ho! Said the judge, who saw his despair, though he did not exactly know the cause. I have brought it you to, have I? Yes, yes, I will tell you. No incantations will be of any avail here. And so, clerk, call the witnesses. The first person examined was the man who had been left in the charge of the balloon, and he deposed as follows. Why, sir, he said, scratching his head, as though he supposed wisdom dwelt in his fingers, and that their touch might give a little to his brain. Your honor told me to call out the posse comitatus and set guard over constables over the gentleman's whirligig. But I thought as how, seeing it was a queer-looking thing, and not likely to tempt anybody to steal it, I might as well save the gentlemen from throwing their money away upon a parcel of idle fellows, and keep watch over it myself. And so get the reward instead of them, observed the judge. Why, your honor, said the fellow, grinning, I thought they might give something that might do me some good, but that it would be nothing against the many. Very true, remarked the judge. Go on, Gregory. Well, continued Gregory, as I was sitting there thinking of nothing at all, and somehow I believe I had fallen into a bit of a doze, I heard a queer sort of buzzing and opened my eyes, and there I saw the gentleman's whirligig buzzing and puffing like a steam engine on fire, and in the midst of the smoke, I take my oaths, I saw the mummy of King Cheops as plain as I see the worship there sitting in his throne. Oh, cried the horror-struck crowd. Oh, cried the judge and jury. Yes, continued the man, I'll take my oath, if it were the last word I had to speak, and that I saw him there, vomiting fire, and his big eyes flaring like a fiery furnace. Oh, cried the judge, crowd, jury, a degree louder than before. And then, resumed Gregory, something went whiz, and off it all fled together like a flash of lightning. Oh! Shrieked the whole court, in a convulsion of horror. Some of the fair sex in particular screamed and covered their faces, as though they feared the next exploit of the redoubtable magicians would be to blow up the court, and send them all flying after the resuscitated mummy. With your permission, sir, said Edric, as soon as the tumult had somewhat abated, this proves nothing against either my friend or myself. We are, in fact, injured by it. We have a claim against you instead of your being able to subsist a charge against us. We left our balloon containing valuable articles and money to a considerable amount in your charge, or at least in the custody of the man you recommended. When we quitted the pyramid, of course, inquired of our balloon. It had vanished. Instead of making us amends for our loss, you throw us into prison and tell us a wild, extravagant story of the disappearance of our property, which no man in his senses can possibly believe. Another confused murmur, though very different in its character than the former, ran through the court on the conclusion of his speech, and the judge, if such an expression be not profane when speaking of a representative of justice, looked most excessively foolish. Had not your worship better call the other witnesses? Whispered the clerk, pitying the dilemma of his principal. True, true, said the liturgist of Anglo-Egypt. Your observation is premature, young man. When the case has been proved against you, it will be time enough for you to think of your defense. Edric bowed in assent, and the examination continued. The guide was your next witness. Oh, Samuel, asked the judge, what do you know of this matter? Why, sir, replied Samuel, You see, my dame and I were sitting by the fire, and we'd got black pudding, as well as we were going to have our dinners, and so I says, Dame, I like it cut in slices and fried. And so I says, Old fellow, cried the judge, with great dignity, don't abuse the patience of the court. We have nothing to do with your dame or the black pudding. It's quite irrelevant to the matter before us. Now go on. But Samuel could not go on, and like his predecessor, the witness box, he only stood still and scratched his head. Why don't you speak, fellow? Asked the clerk. Because I don't know what to say, replied Samuel. You must tell all you know about this affair, pursued the clerk. But I don't know where to begin, rejoined the perplexed witness. His worship says it is not reverent. Begin with the pyramid, said the judge, and, if you can, give a clear account of all that happened after you left the old passage by the movable block in the wall that was last discovered. Why, I can't say there's anything very peculiar happened, as I know of, sir, said Samuel. After that, till we got to the shaft, and we then went down. Sir, you know, we always does, till we came to the tomb of King Cheops, and then I turned the gentlemen in by themselves, as we always does, for the effect of Parson Snoring, he calls it. And then I sits me down in the vault, and I wait for him, and I just rolled myself up and was dozed asleep when I hear such a noise as if the pyramids were tumbling around my ears. So I jumped up and rubbed my eyes, for I did not know very well where I was. Then I saw something that seemed to strike the torches out of the hands of the two great spinning figures, and putting them out. And then I saw a great tall figure come gliding by me, and when he came to the light, I saw his great flaming eyes, and then I fell upon my knees, and he laid hold of my shoulder and gripped it. Look, your honor, laying bare his shoulder, he spoke, showing the deeply indented marks of the bony fingers of the mummy. Again a groan of horror and indignation ran through the court, when another witness proved that the sarcophagus of Cheops had been examined, and was found empty. The judge seemed to think it was a clear case, and called triumphantly upon Edric for his defense. I do not see that what has been proved, said Edric, shuddering in spite of himself, can affect either my tutor or myself. These people say that a mummy was revived and quitted the pyramid in which she had been long so entombed, and flown away in our balloon. But supposing the tale be true, what proof have you that we were all implicated in the business? We were in the pyramid, it is true, but so also was this man, whom you have brought forward as a witness against us. Supposing it was the intervention of some human aid that roused the mummy from its tomb, a fact, by the way, by no means proved, why may he be the agent instead of us? What is there to fix the charge against us? We have gained anything by this adventure? We have not. On the contrary, been serious losers by it. Where is our balloon and the valuable articles contained? If we are wizards, it must be confessed that we are very foolish ones, for we have lost our property and thrown ourselves into prison without reaping the smallest possible advantage. And if we have the power you admit to attribute to us, why do we stay here to be questioned, when we might so easily fly away in a flame of fire, or turn you all into statues, or quietly walk off without you being able to follow us? Everyone shuddered and turned pale at this speech, seeming to fear that Edric was about to put his suggestions into execution, whilst the judge seemed posed and in a vast perplexity as to what he had better determine, and the people were dreadfully afraid lest they might, after all, lose the edifying spectacle of an auto de fe, for which they had been so impatiently longing. Edric marked the hesitation of the judge, and endeavored to improve it to his own advantage. For my part, continued he, I am a British subject, and as such under the protection of my own court. My sovereign has a consul here, and to him I make my appeal. I am neither ignoble nor unknown in my country. My name is Montagu. I am the brother of a celebrated general of that family, whose victories, no doubt, have reached even this remote province. My dear Mr. Montagu, said the judge, I really beg your pardon. Why did you not acquaint me sooner with your dignity? I dare say there is no truth at all to the charge. Only assure me upon your honor that you did not touch the mummy, and that you know nothing of what it became of as its presence. I will instantly order you set at liberty. I certainly do not know what has become of it, replied Edric, but— No, interrupted Dr. Entwerfen, coming forward with the air of the determined martyr. I will not suffer an evacuation. I would rather perish at the stake than disavow for a moment my opinions, or betray my sacred interests of science with which I feel I am entrusted. No, sir, my pupil cannot make the public declaration you require. I know he would not, and he cannot if he would. On the contrary, I avow the fact. We came here for the express purpose of endeavoring to resuscitate the mummy of Cheops, and I glory in the proud thought that we have succeeded. There was a groan of horror. Yes, sir. I do not hesitate to avow openly that the grand object of my life, for several successive years, has been to detect in what consisted the strange and inexplicable secret of life. We live, sir. We die. We are born, and we are buried. We know that time, sickness, or violence may kill us, but who can say what the mysterious principle of life consists? Various theories have been broached, with which, no doubt, a gentleman of your intelligence and extensive information is well acquainted, and life has been successfully stated to depend upon the heart, the brain, and circulation of the blood, and the respiration of the lungs. All, however, are fallacious. The heart has been wounded, the brain has been removed, and yet the patient has lived, whilst the operations of respiration and circulation have been kept up for hours in a body which the vital spirit has departed. Weighing all these and divers other arguments in mind, it has struck me, and I indeed may say, after the mature deliberation, I have confidently arrived at the conclusion that both the faculties which we call life and soul depend entirely upon the nervous system. Do not all philosophers agree that we are to receive ideas merely through the medium of the senses? And can our senses be operated upon otherwise than through the intelligence of our nerves? Ergo, the nerves alone convey ideas and sensations to the mind, or rather, the nerves alone are the mind. Not a single instance, I believe, is known in which life remained after the sensorium has been destroyed, or even seriously injured. What then can be more simple than to suppose life resides there? Pursuing this idea, I have long been convinced that the nervous system remained uninjured, and the appearance of death is only occasioned by a suspension of the operation of animal functions, that life might be restored, if, by the intervention of a powerful agency, the nervous system could be excited to reaction, and as this, of course, could not be effected if any other kind of decomposition had taken place, it appeared to me that the mummy was the only body upon which the experiment could be tried with the least prospect of success. From various circumstances, however, it has never been till now in my power to realize the wishes in my head, and for the past few weeks my pupil has entertained similar longings as myself, and yesterday we saw our hopes accomplished. Yes, I flatter myself there cannot now remain a shadow of doubt in the world that, in ordinary cases, before decomposition has taken place, the resuscitation is not only possible, but probable, and the dead bodies may be easily restored to life. The horror and consternation produced by this extraordinary speech amongst the Anglo-Egyptians who heard it far exceeded any human powers of description. Their horror at what they considered as the doctor's daring impiety being considerably augmented by not their understanding of 1/10 of a part of what he said. And when he had finished, there was a dead pause which no one dared to interrupt, till a sudden gust of wind happened to blow open the door of the justice's retiring room. The terrified crowd fell back aghast upon the other, pale and trembling, and though they absolutely expected his infernal majesty to appear before them, corporea persona. When tranquillity was in some degree restored, the judge ordered the prisoners to be reconducted to prison. After the dangerous and impious speech we have just heard, he said, it would be madness to trust such suspected persons at large, yet I would willingly take some time to consider the case, to ascertain whether this young man be indeed the person he represents himself as. As I own, I should be sorry to inflict the full penalty of the law upon the brother of her Britannic Majesty's Commander-in-Chief. Remonstrance was useless, and the prisoners were again conducted to their dungeon, where they were heavily chained and left to ruminate upon the calamities that had befallen them. Far from agreeable were these meditations, for Edric was too angry with the doctor's ill-timed candor to be inclined to speak, and the doctor was much too ashamed of the effect already produced by his eloquence to wish to make any further display of it. At length, as his eyes became accustomed to the faint glimmering light admitted into the dungeon, he perceived the wall to which he was chained was covered with hieroglyphics, and endeavored to divert his chagrin by examining them. "I congratulate you, sir," said Edric, when he perceived this, feeling rather indignant at his tutor's coolness. "I congratulate you most sincerely upon your philosophy, and most earnestly do I wish that I could imitate it." "Ah, Edric," returned the doctor, "all men are not equally gifted." "With either the art of them making blunders or forgetting them," said Edric pointedly. "These hieroglyphics are very curious," observed the doctor, who had his own reasons for not wishing to pursue the subject. "See how beautifully the ancient Egyptians worked in granite. Fine polish they contrived to give this hard substance would be perfectly astonishing, if we did not recollect that they always edged their tools with emerald dust." "Humph," said Edric, in a tone which seemed to imply, "And what does it matter to me if they did?" The doctor, however, was unabashed, and continued, "You see, as usual, the figure of the bull is frequently repeated here. This wall was evidently built of stones gathered from some ancient ruin. By the way, Edric, I don't think I ever explained to you why the ancient Egyptians served the bull as one of their deities, or rather, as their principal one. You know, the ancient in the years began in Taurus, though, by the presentation of the equinox, and now it has advanced past Aries. Well, as ancient Egyptians found that the sun began its career in Taurus, what would be more natural than they should identify the bull with their vilifying principle? The same theory may account to the legend of the Chaldeans, which supposes the world to have been produced by a bull striking chaos with its horn, which horn, by the way, was probably the origin of the fable of Almathea, or the Horn of Plenty." Edric made no reply, but the doctor observed a pause, which might give his pupil an opportunity of upbraiding him, and went on. "Though the Egyptians had a number of divinities, they clearly worshipped only two, viz., the principles of good and evil, Osiris, Isis, Khneph, Thoth, Horus, and all their hosts of inferior deities were clearly type of the first, and the light and life were their essence, whilst Typhon, Kempsa, and the malignant dignities exemplified the second, and their attributes were invariably darkness and death." "Oh, for heaven's sake," cried Edric, "say no more upon this subject, for it is not the power of language to describe the horror I have of the mere thought of anything Egyptian. Let us escape from this fearful country, and I most sincerely hope nothing may ever happen to recall even its recollection to my imagination." "Such and so chargeable are the desires of human life," said the doctor. "But a few short weeks since, Egypt was the goal of your wishes, and the prospect of reanimating a corpse." "Oh, do not mention it," cried Edric, shuddering. "Oh God, how am I to justify I am punished by the very fulfillment of my hallowed hopes? Even now the fearful eyes of that hideous mummy seem to glare upon me, and even now I feel the grip of its horrid bony fingers on my arm." "Oh, yes, no doubt," exclaimed the doctor. "He pinched hard. He was a king, and kings should have strong arms, you know." "Oh, for God's sake, do not jest upon the subject," cried Edric. "A subject so wild and fearful that I can still scarcely believe but which is past as a dream." "If it be," said the doctor, "it is one from which I frequently avow I should be very happy to awake, for I must confess this prison is not at all to my taste." "And yet, is it not your fault?" said Edric. "Recrimination, Edric, is always folly," interrupted the doctor, who did not now feel very proud of the part he had acted as part of the magistrate, not very anxious to have it alluded to. "Instead of losing time and regretting the past errors, it is part of the wise man to endeavor to find means of remedying them and avoiding them in the future." Agreed, returned Edric. And as I presume you are now convinced your learned dissertation on the probable seat of human life was, to say at least, ill-timed, we will drop the subject. But even if we got out of prison, what will become of us? Our money and valuables were still on the balloon, and here we are, in a foreign country, entirely destitute. Not entirely, Edric, not entirely, cried the doctor, a glow of satisfaction spreading itself again over his face. No, no, I have guarded against that. Ah, what a thing it is to have foresight! While some persons are certainly singularly gifted in that line, and it is a happy thing for you that I have somebody to think for you. See here, displaying the things as he spoke. Here's a bed, bolster, and pillows, ready for inflation, and a portable bedstead, linen, soap, pens, ink, candles, fire, knives, forks, spoons, and money, all snugly packed up in my walking stick. Your supporter, returned Edric, smiling, as you used to call it. Oh, now it seems to likely prove more senses than one. Yes, yes, cried the doctor. Let us only get out of prison, and all will be rest as easy. But that only, doctor. Of that we must take some time to consider. Oh, it is some comfort that we'll likely be allowed some time, and my hint respecting the British consul did not seem thrown away upon the judge. Oh, doctor, if you had not spoken. Why, surely you would have not given him the declaration he required. There was no occasion. He neither wished nor expected more than he already had. After what I had mentioned of the family, he only wished a decent pretext for setting us at liberty. At any rate, said the doctor, by way of changing the subject, you see my doctrine is proved completely by the recitation of the mummy, for it would have been perfectly restored to life and consciousness, or it could not have flown away with the balloon. For my part, returned Edric, I can scarcely believe what has occurred to be real. There must be some deception, and yet, by whom can a deception have been practiced, and for what purpose? In short, I am quite bewildered. The doctor, being much in the same condition, could only sympathize with his pupil, and in this state we must leave them, whilst we inquire respectfully the mysterious object of their speculations. The mummy, thus strangely recalled to life, was indeed Cheops, and horrible were the sensations that throbbed through every nerve as returning consciousness brought with it all the pangs of his former existence, and renewed circulation thrilled through every vein. The first impulse was to quit the tomb in which he had been so long immured, and seek again the regions of light and day. Instinct seemed to guide him for this. As yet, a mist hung over his facilities, and the ideas thronged in painful confusion through his mind, which he was incapable of either arranging or analyzing. When, however, he reached the lights, plain air seemed to revive him and restore his scattered senses, and gazing wildly around, he exclaimed, Where am I? What is this place? Methinks all seems wondrous, new, and strange. Where is my father? And where, oh, where is my Irisane? Alas, alas, continued he wanly. I have forgotten. I hoped 'twas a fearful dream, for methinks I have long been asleep. Was it in reality, indeed? Are all gone? And what was that hideous scene true? Those horrors that still haunt my memory like a ghastly vision. Speak, speak, continued he, his voice rising in a thrilling energy as he spoke. Speak, let me hear the sound of another's voice before my brain is lost in madness. Have I entered Hades, or am I still on earth? Yes, it is still earth, for there the mighty pyramid I had caused to be erected towers behind me. Yet where is Memphis? Where are my forts, my palaces? What a dark, smoky mass of buildings now surrounds me. Can this be the once proud queen of cities? Oh no, I see no palaces, no temples. Memphis is fallen. The mighty barrier that protected her splendor from the waste of waters must have been swept away by the encroaching inroads by the swelling Nile. But is this the Nile? continued he, looking wildly upon the river. Sure, I must be deceived. It is a fatal river of the dead. No paddling boats glide smoothly on its surface, but strange, infernal vessels, vomiting forth volumes of fire and smoke. Holy Osiris, defend me! Where am I? Where have I been? A misty veil seems thrown upon the face of nature. Awake! Awake! Cried he, with a scream of agony. Set me free! I do not mean to slay him! Then throwing himself violently upon the ground, he lay for some moments, apparently insensible. Then slowly rising, he looked at himself, and in a deep, unnatural shuddering convulsed his whole frame. The sensations of identity became confused, and he recoiled with horror from himself. These the trappings of a mummy, murmured he in a hollow whisper. Am I then dead? The next instant, however, he broke into a wild laugh of derision. Poor feeble wretch, cried he. What do I fear? Need I tremble? In whose bosom dwells everlasting fire? No, no, let me rejoice. I cannot be more wretched. Why then should I dread the change? I should rather welcome it with transport and bravely dare my fate. And at this moment the car of the balloon caught his eye. Ah, what is that? He cried. I am summoned. 'Tis a boat of Hecate, ready to ferry me to the Marian Lake and learn my final doom. I come, I fear no judgment. My hell is here. And striking his bosom, leapt into the car and stamped violently against its sides. In an instant, Gregory awoke. His terror was not surprising. The dried, distorted features of the mummy looked yet more hideous than before, and animated by human passions, and his deep, hollow voice, speaking in a language he did not understand, fell heavily upon his ear like the groans of fiends. Gregory tried to scream, but he could not utter a sound. He attempted to fly, but his feet seemed nailed to the spot on which he stood, and he remained with his eyes fixed upon the mummy, gasping for breath, while cold sweat distilled from every pore. In the meantime, Cheops had stumbled over the box containing the apparatus for making the inflammable air, and striking it violently, had unintentionally set the machinery in motion. The pipes, tubes, and bellows instantly began to work. The Indian rubber bottle became gradually inflated, while it swelled into an enormous magnitude and fluttered in the air like an imprisoned bird, beating itself against the massive walls in which it was attached. It still goes not, cried Cheops, again stamping impatiently. The quicksilver vapor bottle had fallen beneath his feet, and it broke when he trod upon it. The vapor mist burst from it with inconceivable violence, and tearing the balloon from its fastenings, sent it off through the air like an arrow darting from a bow.